This episode, big box delivery and what to watch out for. Have you ever purchased an appliance from a big box store and had it delivered? This week, the Handyman pros discuss John's process of having his oven delivered, the frustrations, and some things to watch out for. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition is entitled Big Box Delivery, What to Watch Out For. And to help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy John. John, what's been going on this week? This show is all about you this week.
Larry, yeah, I'm here, man. Well, I got to say that, besides doing a few things around the house here, our old friend of rotting wood and I did some painting trim that was the knots and things were leaking through, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so this week's show, unfortunately, it's been frustrating. I've had my appliances in the house here for close to 28 years, and I've just started to swap them out. I know a lot of people are out there going, "Oh my God!" But I like to fix things. Maybe it's just me, from my old mechanic days and things like that. So I used to take apart my refrigerator and fix it and as well as my oven. So I just had it finally went out. My refrigerator. So went out and bought a nice refrigerator, a new one, not too long ago, at a big box store. Well, they pull up on my driveway and they open up the back of the thing, and of course the refrigerator just falls right over.
It's like,
so I'm
really?
Don't even take it off the truck. Don't even take it off the truck. I didn't want to see it. It's all smashed up, it's already gone. So they, boom, off it goes. Okay, on to the next story. So finally they come back and I get a new one and all that kind of stuff. Now my oven goes out and I had tried to fix it. You can't buy the parts anymore for it.
Right, which is really common, by the way, right? So I think we've talked about this.
It is really common because you're exactly right. It is common because what happened was it's a built-in wall oven with a microwave, and the microwave went out several years ago, maybe even 10 years ago now. And I went in there and tried to fix it, but it was just, I'll save everybody the gory details, but you just couldn't fix it. The parts weren't available anymore. So I disconnected the microwave controls from the oven so I could still use the oven.
You frugal guy, you.
Yeah, I know. My wife's like, "Can we get a new one?" I'm like, "No, we're going to milk this thing out." So, use the oven. Well, anyways, the oven finally went, the whole thing, and I tried to buy, and I found out what was the matter with it. I went in, tried to get new parts. Nope, can't get new parts. Okay, well, now it's time to buy a new one. So I go to the competitor now of the first big box store with the refrigerator story, and I thought, well, it can't be any worse. No, it was worse. So I went out to get this new, wall oven.
Right.
And, these things are really expensive. Okay. That will really set you back some dough. I'll tell you that right now. And they're all kind of different sizes. And there's basically two sizes of these things. There's a 27-inch and there's a 30-inch. But within that, within those columns, there's all kinds of different depths and lengths and things like that.
So one of the real quick takeaways on this, and I'm going to say that this is true for all appliances, right?
Yeah.
You would like to think they're standard, correct? But
that's right.
The reality is they're not, right?
Yes. And this is, let me just divert for a second, is that if anybody out there is doing a new kitchen, remodeling and things like that, you really want to pick out your appliances. If you're going to put new appliances in, pick out your new appliances before you remodel. At least have that sense of what you want, because you're exactly right. The dimensions and things. So when you're building out your, in this case, a new kitchen, that you're going to want to know what those dimensions are for, those appliances, because everything's a little different.
Everything's a little, even just, even a standard range actually has a little bit of variation. I think one of the biggest things people don't realize is there's actually a fairly large amount of variation in dishwashers as well. And since they generally mount underneath, you do have to be, if you've had flooring, I'm just throwing this out there, but if you've had flooring added, make sure you can get the old one out and get the new one in. Right.
That is a great point. That is a great point. I just, I went through that just not too long ago.
Yep.
Same, that's exactly on point right there.
Yep.
So, just knowing all this, and the moral of the story here was, kind of knowing what the dimensions are currently. And I had to find my old install manual for the old oven online. I found it, and it had all the dimensions and things. Well, come to know that, I go to the big box store and I say, well, I want to buy this oven, and they, obviously sell it. But the thing is, well, we need to know if it fits. Well, how much is your install? Now, capable of installing these things, right? But
of course,
but I think, from the Handyman, the business perspective was, okay, well, it was $129 to install it, and they would come out and measure it for $70, but the $70 gets credited back to the $129, so the whole thing. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, well, hell, $129, I get to work, I got to get to work, right? I can make that back. So
one other thing on that too, just while we're thinking about it too, that $129 included them taking the old one away. Is that correct?
No, there's a $25 charge for that.
Okay, so a $25 disposal charge.
Yeah, it's nominal. Yeah, that was a nominal thing.
But still, we've talked about on this show, we've talked about getting rid of things and how sometimes that's not as easy as it sounds, right? So for example, like a regular, well, even this oven, we'll get to this in a minute, but folks, so you know out there, this oven weighs 245 pounds, and we only know that because John just got it delivered, and so the measurement was actually 245. And folks, 245 pounds worth of metal is pretty heavy. I mean, it's a two-man job to get rid of that stuff. So that $25 to get rid of something actually means something. So anyway, keep going, John. I just wanted to add that
right.
in there,
No, it was, and I had no problem with this. Based upon that price, I was like, okay, well, you guys come in, and so the guy comes out and measures the thing, and he just, it was a very quick measurement. He didn't take my old oven out, and I asked him a whole lot of questions. Of course, that's me. I'm like, dude, man, I'm in the business, right? I'm doing these kind of things.
Yeah.
And I'm asking him all the questions. He goes, oh, man, this is going to fit, but you're going to have a gap at the bottom because all the new ovens are much more compact, I guess, if you will, lengthwise than the older ovens.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, well, that's cool, and I'll close that gap in. Okay, not a problem. I think there's probably going to be 4 inches on the bottom of the cabinet that'll be open. Okay, great. I'll take care of that. Not a problem. And so he walks away, and I go and pick out the oven, and I get it. And, here's the dimensions, everything, and I get an estimate now to install the oven at the time of my purchase, because they had sent back everything, the guy that measured, and because now it's a different company now. And now let me make sure that I make that clear. This wasn't the big box store. This was their install company. Okay, if you're catching my drift there.
Much like their delivery companies, right? So
that is correct. That is correct. They use a 3PL, third party logistic company to go ahead and deliver their products.
Correct.
So I get a bill now, or a quote for, I think it was like $420 to install.
What happened to the $129?
That's so I'm a little like, me, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What? I think anybody out there who's gone through this knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Can you say bait and switch?
Yeah, and I really was like, whoa, what is going on here? Because I asked the guy specifically. He goes, well, we're going to charge you an upcharge to build out the bottom. And he said, and that's it. And I said, well, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take care of that.
Right, and that's understandable. Okay. That's understandable, right?
And that's very understandable. But now I get charged for, now he's got that in there. He's got cutting out the back wall. He's got, all kinds of electrical relocate, and he hasn't even they hadn't even taken out the old oven, so I think I might have used, I don't even know how you prescribe anything without diagnosing it,
Correct. Right.
if you're following me there. And I just don't understand how they can come up with that. So I'm like, so now.
And two, just as an aside, when you told me this story, right, I'm like, cut out the back wall. Like, where are they going? Because I know your kitchen, right? Your kitchen backs up to your dining room?
Yeah.
Or it backs up to another room, So it's not like you cut the back wall out. What?
Yeah, I don't. So I didn't really clear, and even when I called up and so now the story advances a little bit, and I'm right in the middle of talking to the customer service manager at the big box store here.
And this is at the big box store now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so now it's kind of a nightmare to get a hold of them. And I left them messages, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. We've all been through this whole thing. So I was even in, because of our job, I'm always in these places.
Yep.
So I thought, hey, I stopped by, hey, can I see so-and-so? And, it's like, yeah, well, she'll be right down. Well, I'm waiting. And never comes down. I'm like, this is kind of the runaround here. We finally got a chance to talk, and they really didn't know anything more than I knew.
No, that talking did not happen the day you were there. Is that correct?
No, that didn't happen. So I didn't, I was like, man, I was really disappointed, from that perspective.
Right. So we remember I'm just telling folks, you already know this, but we want to help save you time, money, and aggravation. And right now, I think you can hear in John's voice, it's not so much the money, but the time and aggravation is starting to get troublesome. Right? Would you agree with me on that one, John?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I just want clarification on what the 425. And I was like, well, look, if that's going to happen, I'm going to install it. And I asked you, Larry, to help me.
Right.
That's not a big deal. We'll do it. But for the other, I make money on that money. You know what I mean?
Correct.
From a business perspective.
Right.
But so I'm still in. They said, well, we're going to have to rebid this thing again because of the specific product that you bought and things like that. Now, all the dimensions are the same, so I can't see how it's going to change, from that perspective. I don't know what was going on here. So I think, once again, from the folks listening out there, they might have gone through these kind of things with some of the big box stores. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but this, so I'm right in the middle of figuring this out. Later on, I'll come back and give everybody an update on this thing. When I find
secondary
out,
part of this, show.
I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure out, how they're actually working their installs, and it's just now that I've experienced both big box stores on this, because like I said, when I opened here was that, it seems like, the products that I have, the appliances that I have are starting to wear out finally, and you can't get parts for them. I'd probably still have them, but, much to the chagrin of my wife, but, I have just now experienced this between two of the big stores, and pretty much the same type of, things going on. It's really weird. It's really, where I understand when you use a third party logistic company and other third parties, you start to lose contact with your customer through those channels,
Correct. Yep. You do, right? And it's just that this is like, it seems like this is an endemic problem with the way the big box stores do their things. And the reason that we're actually doing this show is more just to give you, our listeners, the ability to understand that it's not going to be all bread and roses, right? It's not going to be as simple as people would like you to believe when it comes to doing these things. I'll give you an example from myself. So one of my things is we just bought an appliance for one of the rental properties that we have. And this is the kind of thing where I was on that week, I was on an extremely tight schedule as far as all my jobs and this and that. And I just didn't have that 4-hour window and here was something else you said, John, when you told me this story. Of course, you couldn't get a commitment on the date that they were going to just deliver your oven, right? You couldn't get a date. They're like, well, they'll call you the night before they come. All right.
Yeah, it was a time. That's it. I got the date, but it was the time. But I see where you're going. Okay, and that's exactly right.
Because the point is that it's a 4-hour window, but you killed your whole day, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's the night before. And you and I are planners, right? And we hope a lot of our listeners are planners too. And this is just something where I get frustrated with that. And so on my appliance, I said, you know what? I don't have a 4-hour window on this particular week, and it's a long story, but it was very time sensitive for me to get this appliance in because I had the place rented and I wanted to swap it out before the tenants got in there, right? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. So, fortunately from my standpoint, I know how to do this stuff. I actually also have the equipment to do this stuff because, folks, if you don't know this, I was in the vending machine business a long time ago, and I know how to move heavy appliances. Basically, vending machines are really heavy appliances, and I know how to do that really, really well, and I actually have the tools to do that. So I just generally don't do it because, like John's talking about here, it's generally less expensive for me to have somebody else come and do it because they just knock out. I don't know how many they knock out. I talked to one delivery guy; they do like 50 stops a day, which I think is awesome for them. And but they're good at it, But this particular one, I couldn't get that window, so I ended up buying it and doing it myself because I knew how to do it, I knew what I was doing, and I knew I could do it. I did it in less than an hour from the store to the install because the store was super close to the place as well, so my drive time was less than 5 minutes. But from start to finish, it took me an hour to do that, and I didn't have the 4-hour window. So I say that so that people understand that these things always take like just that, like what we were just talking about. That 4-hour window, while that's really good, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you're going to have to be there all day. Now, I guess maybe now in the COVID times, it's not that big a deal because most people are at home. But in the past, if you've got a tight schedule, that 4-hour window can kill your day. At least it can kill. It definitely kills our day.
Or you've got something else to something else happens, where you have to be out, from in the morning. So it's the way the way 3PLs now have their schedules, and what they'll tell you is, hey, we can, you can look on the net, on our webpage, and it'll give you the tracking and approximate, you're 5 stops away. Well, what does that tell you? I don't know what that tells you.
Right.
I was at 2 stops away for like 3 hours. But it's just one of those things. And you're right, Larry. Basically I had to set aside the whole day to receive the delivery. Now, I had the time. Fortunately yesterday, and I kind of scheduled it. But if anything else would have come up where I had to be out, it's all it's nice to know. Well, you're not going to be there till 1 o'clock or something like that. That window, at least a couple of days before,
Yeah.
But it's pretty tough the night before. So everybody out there, if you're going to go through what have been going through, you just
if you've gone through it, right?
Yeah, just understand you're going to have to make basically. Well, I had to make pretty much an all-day commitment on of receiving the delivery.
Yeah, and even just to your point, I applaud them, the third party logistic companies, for having tracking on their trucks and stuff. So you can kind of see where they are, but
absolutely
knowing that somebody's 3 stops out, and John, you'll understand this, and anybody that lives in a major metro will understand this. Now, again, this is pre-COVID times, but 3 stops out, that could be 6 hours because of traffic, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Not so much right now, but man, I mean that doesn't mean much to me. I'm 3 stops away. Well, 3 stops from where? Are you on the south side of Atlanta? Generally they route their guys all together.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah,
but,
no, absolutely.
But
absolutely, and I get that it's a tough gig. I think the thing is, the moral here is that if the folks out there, if you're going to go out and get some of these products, just be aware of kind of the experience. I'm not trying to be a Yelp review here. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to give you some practical advice here of what, and I thought I would share this with everybody, because if you are going to go get appliances, from these big box stores just know, how they are designed and how how they work with their, deliveries and customer installs.
So you said something interesting about bidding processes. So what do we know about that? Do you know any more about that?
I don't, and they haven't gotten back to me on the rebid. And I talked to them about, I guess about 2 or 3 days ago, and they said it'd be a couple of days. So I'm giving them that period, I mean, but at some point, at least they can communicate, and we can communicate over email. And I was always one, and Larry, and I'm sure just like, when you were in business, and things like that, at least get back to the customer and say, I'm working on it, or here's an update, or things like that, just let me know that you're still alive, let's say.
Still kicking, right?
Yeah. So I haven't heard. I'm very disappointed at that. Very disappointed at that.
I wonder when they do those bid things. So I know this because I'm on several of the lead sites for the Handyman side, right? And so those are always done by bid. Well, some of those are the big box stores use different ones. One big box store has their own program, and then the other one uses one of the large names ones out there. I wonder if they're not just putting those out onto their contractor sites and seeing who shows up. Who will bid it at the low price. I just wonder. I don't know. I don't know if that's how they do it or not.
Well, this bid actually was coming back from the company that does the install. So they're going to have to get back, and they look at the model number and the dimensions and things like that. But once again, it's a hard thing to swallow to say, hey, blindly, I'm going to give you $400 or $500 to install this thing, and you haven't even taken the other one out, so you don't even know what you're getting yourself into. And it might just be, I'm taking it out, I wire in a new one, I put this one in, bolt it in, and you've got a 4-inch gap, like in my case. And that's what I was told. So, and then I get a bill for that. So that was kind of, not to rehash the story, but, if folks, when you're out there, that's the kind of things where I think you need to up front, now that I know what I know. I would be, well, wait a minute, are there any other hidden charges here? Because I was like, what's the install fee was $129. Okay, I was cool with that, but what am I paying that for when I just got another quote for, another $300 or whatever it turned out to be.
Right. And knowing part of our reason for doing this show is knowing what we know, right? What you and I know.
That's why I wanted to share it, because I didn't want anybody else to go through this kind of stuff.
Is that, and plus you do have alternatives, right? I mean, in this case, now John's talking about this is a built-in oven, it's built into the cabinets and this and that. So it's a little more of a custom thing. This isn't just dropping a range on the floor, right? So, but what I want to tell you is you do have some alternatives, right? So for example, John, as you and I both know, we can do this job as well. As handymen, we can do this job because we know we have all the skills to do this. So when you're talking to these, what I think what aggravates us the most is, and this is where we kind of talk, we're not saying they're doing bait and switch, but it really seems like it. Because John, tell them the story about talking to the electrician. John's out on a job site, and I'm going to let you tell the rest of the story.
I was out on a job site the other day, and I was working next to an electrician from a pretty big company here in the surrounding area. And I said, "Hey man, I'm putting in a wall oven, and it's a 220." I said, "Hey, barring me not screwing up, turning the breakers off." I said, "What's the tell me about that?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "It's easy. Just take the junction box off, and see how it's wired, and just put it all back together." And he said, "You're golden." He goes, "It's easy."
So our point there is that the so-called $80 relocation charge is not.
Yeah, he was miffed on that too.
Yeah, I mean, here's a third-party electrician who was a guy we just met out in the field, right? And he's like, yeah, you take the cover off the junction box, you make sure the breaker's off, right? Make sure your power's dead, which we have testers for that, And so anyway, make sure your power's off and wire it, and just wire it back up. He said, and I think, didn't he even tell you, John, you'll have plenty of wire on the back of that oven?
Yeah. Yeah,
and you've received the oven now? Do you have plenty of wire in the back of that oven?
Plenty of wire
on the back of the oven. So I guess my point here is it's kind of like it just seems like this is kind of a scammy. It's not necessarily.
It did feel like that, and I don't want to go. I'm trying to be.
We're not
careful
casting stones. We're not trying to cast stones, but
it was a little like what you're saying there, and that's kind of what got to me, because we do these kind of things, and it's we have that skill, like you said, but it just really caught me off guard on that. It really was, and it wasn't just me. I started to think about everybody else out there that's going through this, and the first thing I thought about is just somebody who really doesn't know anything about much, and you walk in and you're presented with one thing, and then at the time of the sale and completion, you're presented with something totally different. And I kind of really started to feel sorry for the people that might have to go through this.
Yeah. And that's the reason we decided to do this show. And we decided to do this show for that reason, and to just tell you that you do have some alternatives. There's plenty of people that can install appliances. This is not you're not. I don't believe you're necessarily bound to the particular big box store that you use, because there are other people, right? So a handyman can do it. An electrician can probably do it. Appliance, if you go to a regular, like there are appliance repair services, guaranteed they'll put one in for you. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right. We have a good friend that we know, from other parts of the world, and he does, and I know he would put them in, no problem. And he's probably going to be, his pricing's probably, it's not that it's going to be any better, right? Because there's service charges, and then just depending on, some of the ins and outs, but at least it's up front, right? Because it's a big difference when it's up front versus, because this is leaving a bad taste in your mouth, right?
Yeah.
Is that where we're at with it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. And I'm not looking forward to getting any more new appliances. Not from them anyways.
Yeah, it should be it should be kind of a really simple process, I guess I want to say. You shouldn't have, personal opinion, we're just going to put it out there, it's a personal opinion. I don't think you should have had to have gone through the machinations that you've gone through, meaning the amount of different steps, and you went into the store and you waited, and the person didn't even come talk to you, which I think is very bad customer service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like, it's round and round and round. And it should just be, simple, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, for the cost of these things, this is a major appliance. I mean, I was really, and I knew that this thing was going to cost a lot, and then when I got into it, when I started to look more seriously, because I had to buy one, I was like, yeah, this thing is really expensive. I mean, and I'm not buying high end stuff, I'm buying nice stuff, but sky's the limit on this stuff. Believe me.
We say that all the time, right?
But even the lower end stuff is very expensive.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. So.
All
right. Well, do we have anything else, John? Do you want to talk about some rotten wood or some painting, some trim, or something like that?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I'm done. But thanks for the offer, Larry.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, folks, with that, if you have a question or you have any concerns, send us an email at questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. We do have a website. It's handymanprosradioshow.com. Or you can get on our Facebook group at Handyman Pros, and you can do all kinds of ways. Get a hold of us. We would love to do some things. Coming up in the future, we've gotten several responses on some shows that we're actually going to do. So that's coming up. We do listen to what you have to say. Sometimes it takes us a little while to get it all put together, but we've got a show coming up in the next, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, John. We're going to talk about fasteners, about when to use them and when not to use them, I think is what we're going to talk about. So anyway, send us some, get a hold of us. And John.
Yes.
What is that thing that landed in your yard?
I think that's the delivery guy.
At least
it looks like him.
I thought it was. It's the drone flying off the UPS truck. Is that what it is? I thought it was a spaceship, John. I was thinking it was a spaceship. And I thought I saw you grabbing your tools, cuz you wanted to
take it apart.
Take it apart. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.